Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here for this meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Carmel. Before we get started, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, so would everybody please rise? And Councilman Lupinacci, would you lead us?
My pleasure. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this meeting, and thank you all at home for watching. Tonight's meeting is the Town Board work session, and the date is Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. And prior to coming out here for the public session, we did meet an executive session with Jim Gilchrist, our Recreation Director, to discuss a personnel matter, and Councilman Mike Borelli also had a personnel matter that we discussed. So, for the record, Susie McDonough, Councilwoman McDonough, is not here this evening as she is on vacation, and she will be missing the next two meetings as well. So she wishes she could be here, but she felt that she needed a much-deserved vacation, so she took that. All right, so the first item is a review of the Town Board minutes of February 27th and March 6th, 2019. Unless any Town Board members have any questions regarding that, we'll move on. There being none, the first item on the work session agenda, James Gilchrist, Director of Parks and Recreation. Jim, is this to consider a request to authorize awarding of a bid for bus transportation for the 2019 summer camp program?
Sure.
Jimmy?
Yes, you can all see that we sent out the bid package to 26 bus companies, and we received only one back. And it's the bus company that we've been using for the last number of years. They work out of the Yorktown garage, and most drivers come from either Yorktown or Mahopac, so we've been very happy with their service. And just to give you how they raised their price over last year to this year, the 4-H fare went up $1, and then the other bus trip that we have went up $11 per bus. So I think the bid is reasonable, and I would recommend that it's approved.
Okay, great. Board members have any questions or comments for the Rec Director?
Do you remember how many picked up the actual bid? Or was
We actually mail them out to 26 companies. The numbers have been going down over the last probably 4 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think a number of the bus garages don't operate during the summer.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Okay, thanks, Jimmy.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Okay, next item for Jim Gilchrist also, Director of Parks and Rec. Consider farmers market events starting June of 2019, and they'll run through October of 2019. And Jimmy has with him Nina Kalmeyer, the Assistant Recreation Director or Recreation Leader, and Lynn Mongan, who is also going to participate with the farmers market. And Lynn was actually one of the people that brought this up and requested that the rec department consider it, so.
Sure.
Take it away.
Just to give you a quick background, we've been kicking around the idea of a farmer's market for about 4 years or so. The community seems to have an interest in it, so we got a little kickstart earlier this year from Susan McDonough and Lynn Mongan. So Nina has taken the lead with this one. She's put a lot of time and energy into this, and we have a committee. We've met every other week on Tuesdays, and we've come up with a great plan. We've looked at other farmer markets around the area. We've worked with, is it Cornell?
Yes, Cornell Cooperative.
So we've got a great package that we have for rules and regulations. We spent about 2 evenings going over that and revising those. And I'm going to let Nina run with the game plan and how we come up with the fees and the concession costs that we have for these different events. And the reason that we want to have it at Town Hall. We actually came up with that idea from the Mahopac Middle School coming here and doing the cleanup day. We couldn't believe the exposure on Croton Falls Road, the amount of cars that are going back and forth. So our plan is to be able to get it out into the community, get a kickstart here, and then move it hopefully down to downtown Mahopac next year or the year after when we get that park up and going there. So Nina, why don't you take off with that?
Yeah. All right, so we did give you guys a copy of the vendor application as well as the rules and regulations. So we can go over that in a little more detail, but I kind of want to just give you a quick background on where we're kind of going with this. Like Jim said, we would like to host the farmers market here at Town Hall for this year, and we're looking to move it to downtown area hopefully next year. We plan on having it from June 2nd to October 20th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be 21 weeks. It's going to be a rain or shine event, so we will be going on every week. I did hand out to you guys too just now layout that we kind of came up with for Town Hall as to where we're thinking of putting the actual vendors. So as you could see, it would be directly behind me in this L, McAlpin, and then on Croton Falls Road. We would have 14 spots available. Parking for the residents or the customers coming in, as you could see on there. We're going to try to use the Town Hall entrance here as a drive-in one-way, have that sectioned off so people can't drive down this way. We'll have all the vendors in that area. And then on the side of Town Hall, that'll be an exit only. So we'll kind of keep it going in that rotation or that flow. In this parking lot here, we average about 20 spots, and we also would like to use the parking lot across from Highway. There's about 25 to 30 spots over there. So, it ranges in about 55 spots. If we need to use additional parking, if we could have them park on the road on McAlpin, that would be great, but obviously we'll see once we really get going. We also have in here an area for band or entertainment. So we would like to get the local high schools, local arts council, different entertainment aspects to add to the farmers market. So that would be an area for that. Obviously, you could see the flow of the customers going through. We're going to section off down where the police department is, just on the opposite side of this building. So there won't be, the flow won't go down there. It'll keep going up and around. So the police will have access to get in and out from the bottom of Town Hall. That is something that, we will talk to the police about. We want to make sure that that's okay with them. What else? Bathrooms, we'd like to access Town Hall for the bathroom facilities during the market.
What's your question? I see you guys have a concern.
Yeah, on here, are you using that side of the parking lot?
No,
You're not?
no, so if
only
you're
using
For
right out here?
parking.
Yeah, that's for parking.
That's for
Oh,
parking
got
cars.
it, okay.
Yep.
So
This diagram is really from here, Kenny, right from the building on this way,
got it.
and this L, or where your parking spot is over here.
Yeah.
Continuing down there by the dumpster.
Got it. Okay, so it's really only this
Just
L.
this L, so
this
you're
L
gonna,
of the building.
yeah.
All right.
So when people are driving up and down Croton Falls Road, they'll see, oh, what's going on,
Yep.
different stands in the parking lot.
Okay.
The opposite side will be used for parking.
All right, and how many vendors
14.
did you feel you could fit 14 in there?
Yeah, there's 14 spots. They're going to be 10 by 10 spots with
Okay.
about a 10-foot buffer in between each spot so that they have an area to kind of stretch out a little bit.
So once you open up, there's going to be no vehicles that
No
are going to be
vehicles,
flowing
yeah.
through there?
It would be
It's all
sectioned
through-
off right here and then down by the police department.
Got
Well,
it.
up a little bit, kind of by
Okay,
the
that makes sense.
dumpster.
Yep. All right.
What else? So yeah, we would like to use the bathrooms here at Town Hall if possible, for, the residents and the public. Garbage, it will be a carry-in, carry-out event. In the rules and regulations, you'll see it states that vendors must take the garbage at the end of the day. And if they leave anything behind, they'll be charged a $50 fee. We also will have a recreation maintenance worker come around at the end of the day to pick up any garbage that is left behind, to make sure that, Town Hall is clean. See what else. I guess the next thing we can go over is really fee. Do you guys have any questions about the layout or the area at all?
Do you have anything regarding the layout, John?
No, I just checked with the chief, and he said that there's no problem getting parking on at least one side of McAlpin, so just coordinate with them, highway, get the signs out, so one side's at least got the
Yeah.
signs not to park on.
Yeah.
I mean, the only concern I've ever heard from anybody was just about the location. Everybody I
Yeah.
talked to wants a farmer's market. It's-
Yeah.
Who doesn't want it back? I mean, we had it over at the Temple for a couple of years, but it's all about location. So if we
Yeah,
can ballpark
absolutely.
straight up here, and there's 50 spots that we have, plus 20 on the street, we should be
should be able to make it happen, hopefully, with 14 vendors. And then when we get downtown,
Exactly, we can make it grow a
30,
little
40
bit bigger.
vendors, and we'll have hundreds of spots. That's what we hope for.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
We're looking to utilize your new sign, your new sign.
The message boards?
Yeah.
Your new
Yeah.
message boards to get the word out as well.
Yeah.
You know, farmer's market today, up
Yeah.
this way, or
And with that too, other marketing, we're gonna have some banners around town. Obviously, you know, we have our signs for the different parks. We'll put those banners up, letting people know, getting it out, social media, flyers, and having you guys announce it at the meetings. That would be great. But I guess we can really go into vendors and the fees and whatnot. So, for the 21-week session, it's gonna be $420. It's gonna be a 21-week commitment for the vendors. They must provide the rec department with insurance, permits, so we'll have all of that on file. Also, we're going to be seeking out the vendors, you know, doing the research at other farmers markets. They research the vendors, they pick the vendors, so people can apply to be a vendor, and then we'll take it upon ourselves at that point to really go through everything, make sure that, you know, you have somebody who's selling bread, somebody who's selling pie, someone who's selling cheese. You don't want too many of the same vendors at that one market, due to the fact, you know, they're gonna be competing with each other. So we wanna make it fair for all, but once we have this vendor agreement done, we will be able to get it out to the, public, and they can apply, and then we'll really go from there. We also are going to do a concession fee with that too. We'll have one local food business per week selling healthy snacks or lunch for the public. I think it's a great way to get local businesses involved in this as well. So we reached out to the chamber, and we're gonna, you know, reach out to their members to get any local delis, restaurants, or food operators that would like to join in. Those spots will be $50 per week. Same thing, it'll be a 10 by 10 spot. But it's a great way to get their business out there in the community, offering samples of what they have in-house, as well as offering them coupons or giveaways, and just getting the people to eat and shop local.
we are gonna make sure too that the seniors, are gonna be able to use, they get some kind of senior bucks that they get there. We're gonna make sure that the vendors that we get, will take the senior bucks so that the seniors will also have the ability and access to come to the market and, you know, get the produce that we need.
Any questions on those few items?
Great idea. Yeah, I like it. Greg, so, have you had an opportunity to review the application?
I have.
Any
and
concerns? Any-
Nothing that grabs me. Obviously, the board needs to look at it, and you typically would adopt those as the official application forms and the vendor participation forms. You can certainly do that next week. If there's any tweaks or changes that the board member or members want, in that time frame, you can certainly incorporate them into it. But they're fairly standard for that type of event.
Okay, and the general liability coverage for the insurance
You have to provide it with us
Yeah.
to our satisfaction, like,
provided to
Yep, to
recreation?
us, yep.
And then
and recreational, I would assume, send it to me.
you send
Yeah.
it over to Greg, and Greg reviews it? Okay. Good. All right. All right. It's a great idea, guys. Really, I think it's something that this community is really going to support. It works well in other communities, and as John stated earlier, the Temple Beth used to have them. I don't know when they stopped. Was it a couple of years ago, John?
I think a few years ago.
A few years ago.
A few years ago, yeah. So it's great that you guys are bringing it back here to
Yeah.
Carmel and Mahopac.
Yeah, I think it'll be great for the residents. It's,
Yeah.
you know, something that'll grow each year and blossom into something great in the
Yeah.
future. So,
How many vendors do you have so far that have tentatively have indicated that they would participate? Do you
a
have
few.
A few?
We haven't really gone too deep into it because we wanted to make sure we had the, you know, right approvals and whatnot first before sending anything out and really getting people too interested. And then to turn around and say, hey, we're not gonna be able to do this. So,
Yeah.
at this point, we're gonna go full force and, you know, reaching
Yeah.
out to people and getting some good vendors.
There is a lot of interest though, from the
Yeah.
vendors,
Yeah.
from our local vendors, not
Yeah,
people that are from like out of county, within Putnam County, within the town of Carmel. There's a lot of interest.
right. And it'll be great that it'll eventually wind up down at Swan Cove.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be perfect location for it on the lake. You know, so-
Absolutely.
So it'll be nice. Once that's built out and ready to go, yeah, just move it down there.
Yeah.
and, You know, we'll have the big
That's our
parking lot
plan.
there for parking, so.
Yep.
That'd be wonderful. All right. So you got the green light.
All right, sounds
You
good.
go ahead, proceed with this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They'll be at the farmer's market.
With treats, yeah, anything.
Yeah?
Yes.
You did?
Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Lynn. You always make good treats.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. All right. Thanks again. Yep, you got it. Okay, next item on the agenda, number 3, Lake Cassie Park District Advisory Board. This is to consider request to approve and distribute the spring 2019 newsletter. Board, you have it here, and as always, the Lake Cassie Park District Board does an excellent job in laying this newsletter out. This is what it looks like.
Every year they
Ev- Every year they really do outdo themselves. They have, the Lake Cassie Egg Hunt is scheduled for the 14th at 11 a.m. Mommy and Me Paint Party, or Daddy too, it says. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, May 4th at 1 p.m. The Lake Cassie Annual Summer Kickoff, Saturday, June 22nd, starting at 11 a.m. So they really do a great job over there in the Lake Cassie Park District. So I just want to thank them and commend them, and really appreciate everything they do for the Lake Cassie community. They do a fabulous job. Bill Sicleri, Kim Kugler, Scott Sturbins, Amanda Gusak, John Aquinas, Stacy Kelly, Teresa DePace, and the property managers, Terry Kelly. So this is it. This is what goes out, and the board has to approve it. They pay for the cost of it through their district taxes. The only thing we do is we assist in putting it together and mailing it out to the residents, so. Board's okay with this? Good, John? Okay. All right, number 4, consider renewal with the Putnam County Real Property Services for the preparation of the tentative tax rolls. Greg, can you take this one, please?
Sure. All right, this is a contract that the board enters into with Putnam County for the Department of Real Property Tax Services to prepare your tentative assessment roll. And that's something that comes out and is filed around May 1st every year. And what the county does is enter into a contract to prepare the rolls, basically for a unit parcel price of 50 cents per parcel, and each special district is added 1 cent per parcel. That's been the agreement that's been in place at those terms and at those figures, I'm going to say since 2008. In terms of the prices, it hasn't gone up. And it obviously takes the burden off of your assessor's department in terms of the preparation of the rolls at a reasonable cost. So if you're inclined to do it again this year, it would require a resolution authorizing entry into the agreement with the county. And the county officials would then sign off subsequently if you were to authorize it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I think it's been 50 cents a parcel for
Your whole term.
at least 10 years,
Yeah.
11 years, so they haven't increased it, which is great, and it does help us with respect to getting the tentative rolls out for the parcels in the town. So, any questions, comments regarding the county preparation of the rolls? Nope. Okay. All right, next, number 5. So, Police Chief Mike Kazari is here for 5, 6, and 7. 5 is to consider request to authorize the purchase of 4 police vehicles, 2 all-wheel drive 2019 Dodge Chargers, and 2 2019 all-wheel drive Dodge Durangos PPVs. Chief?
All right, so let's move out of order. Let's go do 6 first.
Okay.
So 6, I'm just asking not for a resolution, but for the board's approval for budget transfer from 131-2021, which is the vehicle line. Take $4,731 that I need to upgrade to the pursuit package, move it from 27 equipment line to 21 vehicle line. It's just a budget transfer.
Okay. All right. Yep.
That being that the pursuit package, it's a beefed up suspension. It makes the vehicle handle better. And as I discussed with the supervisor early, or liability-wise, you know, they say pursuit rated, so they're, you know, sticking that sticker on it.
Yeah, no, I think it's good, Mike. For the cost of it, definitely if it'll improve the suspension and the handling, as, you know,
Because SUV is a little
they're
top-heavy.
They're a
and-
little top-heavy, and it'll improve that traction on the road, especially when responding to emergency calls. It's the way to go. Makes sense, and it's not a lot of money.
And we're
So-
we're going with those as opposed to the Fords. There's more room
Yeah.
in the Dodges, and it just seems to be a better vehicle.
Yep, I agree.
Small move.
Yep. Everybody okay with it? Comments, concerns?
Yes.
So
No?
then back to 5,
Yep.
please. So
Okay.
5,
Back to five.
we're asking to go ahead with the budgeted allocation of 2 Dodge Chargers all-wheel drive and 2 Durangos. That's 162,317, and that's with all the lights and all the equipment, everything but the radios and the computers and the modems and that accessories that we put in.
And this was included in the chief's 2019 budget, the cost of these vehicles. So it's just, the chief is requesting permission to go ahead and order the cars and purchase them and pick them up. So, everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay, chief?
Thank you.
All right. So go on to number 7.
So we are requesting to purchase the 4 Toughbook laptops for the car with the printers in the headrests and the printers for the tracks for the ticket system and all the accessories, the modems and all that with it.
Did you say printers in the headrest?
Yeah. Because there's no room, if you put it,
No, it's interesting. I just,
well, if you put it in the armrest, then there's no room for the rifle. It's tight. They're making cars smaller and smaller, or vehicles smaller and smaller. Yeah, so we're going to put the printers in the headrest. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And so that's 26,000. And the board had previously approved that grant for the 5,000 for 1 laptop. But rather than order 1 laptop and then order 3, I'm ordering all 4 together. This isn't a 5th laptop. It's just the 4. It just makes it cleaner to just do 1 order.
And Mike, the Panasonic Toughbooks have been
Really good.
really good.
Yeah,
working out well.
the knockoffs that we did,
They didn't
the
last.
keys are falling off and they were horrible. These have been good.
Okay.
I wish that we did the Panasonic cameras when we did them instead of the foreign product that I
Yeah.
did because those don't work and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But we're learning.
Any additional costs expected for the full outfitting? The decals, the town logo, things like that? Anything large,
No, it's like $500, whatever we've been paying for the cars.
but no other telecommunication install? This. 'Cause
This is going to be the modems. Yeah, it's all included. The price hasn't gone up a tiny bit. I think it was like $20 each or something, or $50 each. It's the modems with the extended antenna, so you get better better connectivity and all that. And we're using that system like we had discussed months and months and months ago, where it's a private network. We're connecting to the county. It's all we're moving ahead technology-wise.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, 8, 9, and 10 are Town Engineer Rich Franzetti. He couldn't be with us this evening, so he asked Greg and I if we would handle his items. So 8 is to consider a bond reduction for RPK Precision Homes, tax map 55.14-1-5-1 to $773,000. There's a memo here to the town board from Rose Trambata, the planning board clerk, subject bond reduction. On February 27, 2019, the planning board passed a motion recommending a bond reduction for the above-captioned property. RPK Precision Homes attaches a fully executed bond application form in Town Engineer Richard Franzetti's memo dated November 14th. So the town engineer requests that the original bond amount posted, which is currently being held in $773,000, the applicant has provided the attached breakdown of items completed and items that remain outstanding. The work remaining totals $200,000, and this department has no objection to the breakdown submitted. As you're aware, the policy of the board is to retain a bond reduction, entertain a bond reduction below 20%, not to, below 20% of the original bond. The amount remaining is 26% of the original bond. We therefore recommend a bond reduction of $553,000, leaving a balance of $200,000, which is 26%. So the engineering department is recommending approval of the reduction of the bond, and also the planning board signed off on this. On 3/5/19, the chairman of the planning board, Craig Papri has signed off on this, also authorizing the bond reduction as well. So, Board, unless you have any comments, questions, or concerns on the reduction of this bond, we'll move forward. Then council will prepare a resolution for next Wednesday. Jonathan, do you have anything on this?
No.
John? Mike?
I'm going to check with engineering tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
I'll do it myself during the
Okay,
week.
all right. Okay, number 9, consider a request to authorize payment, East Hudson Watershed Corporation Operation and Maintenance Statement. So, the East Hudson Watershed Corporation is a corporation that was established about 8 years ago, and it was established based on federal watershed guidelines and the protection of the watershed. In particular, New York State, most of the southern portion of New York State is in the New York City watershed, and the town of Carmel was required to be part of the East Hudson Watershed Corporation. There's 18 component towns that are part of the watershed. And each year, the town is given a invoice for retrofits. So any retrofits that were done with respect to participation in the East Hudson Watershed Corporation and that are required under the federal mandate, and it's administered through the New York State DEC, that the town has to maintain these retrofits as well. So we have an invoice here from the East Hudson Watershed Corporation in the amount of $16,533.72. This is our responsibility as part of the operation and maintenance of the municipality's phosphorus removal requirement. It's very detailed and technical, but the East Hudson Watershed Corporation, through the federal mandates and through the state overseeing this, the town is responsible for installing retrofits that remove phosphorus from entering into the watershed. In particular, the New York City watershed, where most of the drinking water, if not all of it, flows through the town of Carmel at some point down through the Croton Reservoir. Eventually, it winds up down in New York City after it's gone through their water treatment plants. So we have to maintain these retrofits. So each year, they have to be inspected, and if there's any necessary repairs that have to be made, they'll be made to the retrofit. But the inspection is a requirement, and we have to do this. We don't have an option not to do it. We're required under the federal mandate to maintain these retrofits. So the cost per kilogram is based upon vouchers submitted in 2018 and is subjected to fluctuation each year based upon the work completed and the cost submitted. So the estimated cost for this year is, as I stated, it's $16,533.72. So we have to pay this to the East Hudson Watershed Corporation for the O&M of the retrofits. We do this annually. It's just it came up at the first quarter of this year, and we're required to pay it. So, Town Board, it's not that we have an option not to pay this. We really do have to pay it because the retrofits have to be inspected and maintained, and that's part of our requirement. Okay, Mike, any questions, comments? Jonathan?
No, I still don't understand how they actually calculate all this off, and why we're paying more than what our estimated is, why other places pay a third of what their estimated is. So that's a discussion I'll have with engineering to see if I could get a better understanding on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, John, based on my knowledge of it, it's based on how many retrofits you have in your municipality. Some have more, some have less, so this calculation, this number, is based on how many we actually have and the amount of inspections that have to be done with them, so. Listen, my view on this whole thing, New York City should be paying the full cost of it. We shouldn't have to pay this. It's really meant to protect their water, their drinking water, but it falls on the shoulders of the town of Carmel taxpayers based on the federal mandate for MS4s, and we've challenged it. New York City has ponied up some money for this, but in my opinion, it's not enough. They should be paying more than what they are paying, and we've been challenging that, and we've actually gone back and forth quite a bit with the New York City DP on this, and, you know, to be continued, I guess, but we're going to demand that they pay more of what they're paying now. But this has to be done, unfortunately, and at this time, we have to pay it. Okay, so next item on the agenda, number 10, this to consider resolution, quick claiming and relinquishing an easement at 33 Warren Drive in Carmel, New York. I'm going to defer to council to handle this one.
Sure, thanks, Kenny.
Yeah.
This is a request that came from a property owner in what's known as the Michaels Glen subdivision off of Fair Street that kind of arose last summer. That particular property at 33 Waring Drive is encumbered by a drainage easement in favor of the town, that there aren't any drainage facilities in, certainly no retrofits or any culverts or anything to that effect. So the inquiry came to the engineering department as to whether the town could do an investigation and see whether the easement at this point, after the subdivision was completed and all the improvements were done, was still necessary. And engineering ultimately took on that task, and they delivered a report to the board dated October 4th, and it was discussed at the October 10th work session, which is in your backup, which has a fairly detailed analysis of the origin of why the easement was reserved and some of the physical characteristics in the surrounding areas. Come into the, long story short, the conclusion that right now the easement that encumbers his property that the owner is looking to have the town relinquish to him doesn't serve any viable purpose for drainage. That was engineering's report, and that was presented to you some time back. Since then, obviously, if the town were to convey any property interest, the property interest would have to be valued. We've asked the assessor to do that, and he has come up with a valuation for the potential property interest of a maximum of $1,000. The owner has since reached out to the engineering department in my office, asking if he can move forward with the process if the board's inclined to authorize the relinquishment of the easement in conjunction with the payment of the valuation as set by your assessor, and of course, any of the recording fees for the conveyance documents, which would probably be a quitclaim deed, and the ancillary documents that have to be recorded with the county clerk. So with that said, it's been about 5 months. We put it back on the agenda with the understanding that your assessor put a number on it, and the board is inclined to do it. What we would do is consider a resolution authorizing the conveyance upon the homeowner's tender of the consideration for the easement and the estimated recording fees. Then I would draft documents for signature, and when they were tendered back to the town, presumably Supervisor Schmidt, pursuant to an authorization, would countersign them. They'd be recorded, and the matter will be concluded. But it's entirely up to the board. If you're inclined to do that, if you want to rely on engineering's findings, that's certainly fine. I'm just bringing it back because the homeowner has renewed the inquiry now.
Okay. All right, thanks, Greg. And just for the benefit of the public, the value that the assessor put on this property, in his professional opinion, is worth less than $1,000, $1,000 or less, so it's not a tremendous value that the assessor had placed on this property. So that's what the property owner would.
I looked at it too, Kenny. It's a lot line drainage that hasn't been used since it was built.
Yeah.
And all we're doing is hurting the homeowner from improving what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt anybody. It just helps the neighborhood.
Okay. Any questions, John? John? Okay. All right, so that concludes the agenda items for this evening's town board work session. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor to any public comment on agenda items only that we covered, 1 through 10. Does anybody want to come up and comment on any of the agenda items? Come on up at this time. I think you're all here for open forum, new portion business of the meeting, and I'm pretty sure it's connected to Wellington Drive. Am I right? Yes. Okay. Are just about everybody that's here is here regarding this matter with the reported possibility of a,
See if anybody has anything else to discuss first.
yeah,
Open forum.
open forum. Yeah, is there anybody else here for any other open forum, new business portion of the meeting? Other than the cell tower that everybody heard that perhaps may be built over on Wellington Drive? All right.
I'll make this quick. John Butler, Carmel Water District Number 2. Shocking, just a couple of items about water.
Okay.
really some housekeeping issues, and this is kind of rolling up to the April 24 public hearing that's going to be over in Carmel, or April 25, I can't remember. The report that was issued, I know it's on the website, but it's in the engineering section of the website. It's kind of buried. I was just wondering if it might be possible to just take it and put it right on the front.
Yeah, we'll get that done tomorrow.
Right,
Do that
great.
tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Also, sort of another housekeeping issue. If it's possible, if the engineering firm could just put together a nice sort of executive summary that we can put right on the website too, just like a one-pager, so anyone can kind of look at it rather than, quite frankly, diving into this thing and trying to figure it out. If it's possible, I mean, it's just a thought. Because we're trying to get,
Can you request that through engineering? Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely send out a request for that.
Okay, all right.
what-
Yeah,
yeah. It's just, bing, bang,
Just
boom,
something,
boom.
yeah.
Yeah, here it is,
Yep.
this is what it is, here's, potential question, or just bullet points. We see executive summaries all the time. That's all I read, I'm too lazy to read anything
we'll
else.
take care of that.
Also, we're trying to, there's a group of people getting bigger that really wants to maximize the opportunity of the public hearing. Trying to get it to a point where people before the public hearing actually understand what's going on and informed, and trying to get, take the opportunity at that time to maximize the opportunity. And so that's really what this is all about. And I'll leave it off at this. I just wanted to, doing my own research, and starting to come upon the horrible realization of how much the cost is going to be associated with this. So doing some research, and again, I'm going to end it here. I looked at the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, which is the state, it's not an agency, but it's an act where they actually fund and grant money for water and wastewater improvements. And I looked at the list of the 2018 drinking water grants, just drinking water. And I kept it to sort of the tri-state area, the metro area. And I just want to read off a couple of these projects and the funding. And sort of the précis, before I even started drilling down into it, so to speak, I figured, you know what, we're never going to qualify. We're going to be we're going to be we're very wealthy here, as we all know, and we're not going to qualify, and that's not the case. So some of the towns off of this list, just to illustrate the point that doesn't matter: Larchmont, Locust Valley, Long Island, one of the richest communities in the state; Garden City, Long Island, right top 10; Massapequa, my own hometown; Rockville Center on Long Island. All of this drinking water grants. So getting down to very specifics, and really thinking about us in particular, started to look at individual grants. So there was one, and this is 2018, by the way. This is all just, in the past few months. So I guess they do one round a year, and this was the 2018 round. So in Middletown, they had a project costing $4.9 million. They got a grant paying for $2.9 million of that. Guess what it was for? Water tank replacement. Interesting, right? Dutchess County, $3.3 million project, $2 million grant, water distribution connections. Rhinebeck, $3.7 million project, $2.2 million grant, water distribution system improvements. Another really poor town, Millbrook, $1.9 million project, $1.1 million grant. And finally, two more to finish up. I don't know, is it Esopus? I can never remember, up in Ulster County. $3.7 million project, $2.2 million grant from the state, water tank replacement. Berlin, New York, $2.5 million project, $1.5 million grant, storage tank replacement. So there's others too, and all of them, again, this is just downstate stuff. It's all drinking water. And I think, as part of, as we go along here, these are the type of things that we should be focusing in on along with everything else, because it's clear from this. I mean, it's blatantly clear. The money's there. It's available, and it's available for exactly what we're doing. So we got to focus in on grabbing. Okay? Thanks.
In regards to that, we did have a grant writer that we had retained for 2 years. We had put in applications for grants at the state level and federal level on both those years, and did not get anything approved for that. We have had grants that were put in on application this year and last year as well at the state level. I don't believe any were put at the federal level. But we are, and thank you to Ann Pasquarello, who had this initiative. We are going to be inviting all of the state representatives that are representatives of the area, as well as any federal representatives, to come and sit so that they can hear the issues that we are facing in Water District 2 for that April 24th meeting, 6 p.m. at the Carmel Firehouse.
Right.
But it is definitely, I believe, something that, again, we'll apply for this year for grants.
Yeah, I just wonder why all of these people get it and we
I
didn't.
think a lot of notice of violations, unfortunately. And I think if you were to take a deeper dive into that, most of those...
Which I did not, no.
No, and that's part of, and it's a crazy grading structure that they have. If we're finally in a violation, then we'll suddenly get grant money. But until I think we get notice of violations, we're kind of lower on the grading scale.
Yeah, it's just that, and again, I have absolutely no doubt that's 100% accurate, but when I look at these towns and I'm familiar with these places, like Locust Valley, Garden City, et cetera,
Per capita, they're much...
I'm just a cynical
Yeah, they're good.
person, and I'm really hard-pressed to think that there isn't other influences in play when these things are granted.
Sometimes
just
it has
me.
to do with the
I mean, New York, this
connections
could never happen,
and
right?
relationships that people have.
that's it.
And
Oh,
sometimes they
well,
have-
there you go.
Yeah, and
That's kind of
sometimes
what
they
I'm
have
talking
really
about.
good law firms that represent them.
Right. Okay, guys, thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, anyone else here for new business open forum that's not related to the Wellington Drive issue with the proposed tower that everybody heard about? No? Okay, so let me just say this for the benefit of everyone. I'm not really sure how information had gotten out with respect to Wellington Drive's possible location for a future cell tower. But however it did, somebody became aware of it. I'm not really sure it was through the engineering department or through a conversation someone had out on Wellington Drive with the engineer and the gentleman from Homeland Towers. But I will tell you, this book here has there's 23 properties in here that are owned by the town of Carmel that was deeded over to the town from developers who built subdivisions back whenever the subdivisions were built. The subdivision on Wellington Drive, that developer deeded over 4.83 acres, so it's just under 5 acres of land to the town of Carmel for recreation use. So it's deeded for recreation use only. So that parcel, which I'm very familiar with, is a recreation parcel. What Homeland asked from us was they wanted to see all of our sites. So they actually went through this book and they identified sites that potentially could be the location for a future cell tower. Wellington Drive was one of them. It's not absolute, it's not definite. They were only doing like a site visit for consideration of a cell tower. All the properties. There were a bunch of properties that they looked at. That happened to be one of them. So that is not definite. It was just one of them that they looked at. I don't think they're going to use it as or select it as a future site. But I really appreciate all of your attention to this matter, all the calls that you made to the town hall, my office, the engineering department, because it affects each and every one of you. Me personally, I think that's a horrible site for a cell tower. I would never agree to putting one there, me personally, and only speaking for myself because I know the site, and it's too close to residential homes. These things do not belong in residential homes, in districts where residential homes are located. They merely asked to see the sites, and we obliged them, we gave them this. And one of the reasons why we did was because, you know, there's two proposed right now in Mahopac and Carmel. One's on Croton Falls Road, one's off Dixon Road. The thought that this town board had was that if there was a location in here, and we have a lot of sewer and water districts throughout the town also, if there was a location that was far enough away from residential homes, that perhaps maybe we would consider putting one there, because it is revenue to the town. It does bring revenue in to the town for the location of these cell towers. But if they're too close to residential homes and it's going to affect your quality of life, health concerns that we all have, including myself, and home values deteriorating because of it, then it's not a good location as far as I'm concerned. But if there was a parcel that we did own that was far enough away and it wouldn't have impacted your home values or your health concerns or anything related to that, then as far as I'm concerned, it's not a good location. But if we did have one that met that criteria, that didn't affect any of you and what I just described, then perhaps maybe we should consider it. So because they were out there, they were evaluating the site, there was no definite determination made. We're not pursuing that at this point. So they happened to be out there, and our engineer was there, Rich Franzetti. The engineering car was there, and it's got a logo on it. It's identified as the engineering car. And I think the gentleman, Klaus Wimmer from Homeland Towers, not sure if he had his car there, but that's not marked. But from what I was told, there was a woman, or a couple of women maybe walking their dog, or somebody was over there, and they had a conversation with the engineer about it. And I don't think it was offered up by the engineer. I don't think he had stated that it was a location that they were considering a cell tower for. I think, if you're here, correct me if I'm wrong, that person stated it. Are you looking at this location for future consideration for a cell tower? I don't know if the engineer either confirmed or denied that, but then there was another woman that called the engineering department a few days later, spoke to the town engineer, and I think her name was Eileen. Eileen? Hi, Eileen, thanks for being here. You spoke to Rich Franzetti, the town engineer, and he indicated that it was, in fact, a location that was being considered for a cell tower?
He just confirmed that it was him with Homeland looking at the property.
Okay.
He just answered my questions. He didn't,
Yeah.
he didn't fire me up or any of that. He just answered my questions, and that became a big,
Okay.
one of my greatest fears, was confirmed.
Yeah.
You know, and we're, as you can see, we're. She's gonna need to come to the mic.
Yeah. Eileen, if you want to speak, can I ask you to come up to the podium where the mic is?
Everybody else want to say something before you take it from the audience?
Yeah, so, Eileen, just before you do speak, I'm going to ask the town board if they want to share any information or if they have anything to say, and then we'll certainly open it up to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
All right.
you were doing great, so
Okay.
appreciate what you were saying so far.
Well,
Yeah, I just
that-
wanted to follow up
yeah.
on what Kenny said. The last time we had a group of people here, and Bob is the one that spoke about cell towers, I said very plainly and openly, they're coming, okay? And the two sites they have right now that they're looking at is churning my stomach as we speak, because I have a personal involvement, a relative of my daughter right next to one. And when Homeland Towers approached us, we said, look at all our properties. This is what's going to happen. They're going to look at all our properties. And if they don't like one of our properties, they might pick somebody's property that's out there. And they're going to put it there. And the odds of us beating them are fairly remote. There's always a chance of beating them. But these towers are coming. And we're just trying to put them in the right areas to affect the least amount of people. And
Mitigate the collateral damage.
you're going to have, now, here, I'm going to give you an example that the Mayapack News ran a story on 2 weeks ago. I mean, one of the people that were having a cell tower, Homeland came to us and says, is there another spot where we won't disrupt that many people? So, you know, they looked at the park, we do it in the park. Next thing we know, we handed a cease and desist lawsuit, attempted, possible lawsuit, saying we're infringing on a homeowner's right to put a cell tower up in their backyard. So we're in a no-win shot right here. And somebody is going to sell somebody out for $1 to put a cell tower in their backyard. What we're trying to do is put them in areas where they don't affect anybody, because they are going to come. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Okay.
But I mean,
Are the other towns being pursued? The
Yes.
surrounding
Yes.
towns are
Every
also
town.
being
Every
pursued?
town.
Every
Yeah,
town is.
I worked with Homeland Towers when I was treasurer of a fire district in Westchester, and this was over 10 years ago. And they have been very, very aggressive at acquiring what they need in order to meet what their carriers want. And I believe when They had come and they were looking at individual sites. The best thing at that point for us to do was to invite them to discuss where we may be able to utilize some of our land, like the supervisor had said, try to mitigate any of the collateral damage that would hit the residents and allow us to generate revenue instead of having a private citizen generate the revenue. I believe that, unfortunately, when they look through, they already have geographic locations that are already researched for where they need to place their towers. So if they're looking at one in a neighborhood, I'm pretty sure even if it's not our property, it will become someone's property that it's going to go to, and it will be a private citizen, and we won't have much control. In fact, even if we try to slow down a process, federal government has already given basically green lights after, is it 90 days?
90 days.
That start your construction. So we are very fortunate that there is open communication with the company that's looking to bring in these towers. We had said, hold on, we have this new code, we want you to oblige by this. They came out with a crane test, so they are willing to work with us. It's just a matter of really just mitigating what the collateral damage is, because, like Councilman Borelli said, they're coming. We cannot do anything that I believe will have legal grounds to do that could stop it from happening. And it's a matter of just trying to do what we can to protect the residents, the taxpayers, and the constituents that we represent in the meantime. But if they're here. They're going to be here, and I think the only thing we can really hope for is an accelerated movement of the 5G network, because they won't be utilizing those towers. But until that happens, I don't think that we stand much of a chance preventing anything from coming into the area, but we could try to limit what impact it's going to have on our residents, on our homeowners, and also on our community as a whole. But unfortunately, there's nothing we could do to say not in our town. I wish that there was. And I know that there are towns that have tried it, and there are towns that have lost every time that they've tried it. And I don't know of any, Greg, maybe you could correct me, that have successfully stopped it.
Few, very few. But just so the audience is aware, any lease agreement that the town enters into with the telecommunications company generally is subject to a permissive referendum. So if in fact you decide you were going to enter into a lease agreement for one parcel or parcels, you know, the public would have the right to seek a referendum on it by walking petitions, which is typically how that goes.
Explain what that is. Is that meaning we could vote on it, or?
Yeah, ultimately, yes. There has to be a certain percentage of people who request a referendum, and the referendum form has to be filed with the clerk, and then it can be either a special election or it can be actually like a prop on a standard election day ballot. But anything that the town authorized down the road for any site, anywhere, by the way, for any lease of property or sale, including
only for
this
town
easement on
But
Wareham Drive, is actually
that's all you
subject to
have, or
permissive.
23 pieces of
It's
property?
23 parcels.
That's
that-
it?
That we have. No, we own other properties. These are properties that are subdivision properties that were deeded over to the town in lieu of paying a fee. The
Right,
the
I know
builder,
what they are,
the builder
yeah.
was required to deed over property for recreation use.
Mm-hmm.
There's 23 of those sites.
We also wanted to know how many were coming.
So do we know that number?
No.
We don't. We
And-
don't know.
And
Okay.
I myself, and I'm quite sure the entire board, would love to see this group stay very close with the other groups.
Yeah,
Stay
absolutely. I
together.
mean, we're all here for, because we just heard, I mean, it
Well,
affects us
stay-
personally, but I don't want to see
Well,
it go into anyone's neighborhood in this town. I mean, we have a duty, you have a
Yeah.
duty, we have a duty as a community to keep it,
What can you do
you know,
when the
personal.
federal government tells you what to do and you can't stop it? That's the problem.
We can fight, we
You
can,
can fight, and believe me, we're fighting, I'm fighting.
I think what we can do is, I think we have an obligation to protect you also, okay, to protect the public, all right? And we'll do everything we can to do that within our power. Because it was stated that the federal government has granted a lot of power to these cell tower companies, a lot of authorization to them to put these up. They're almost a mandate that these things are coming and they're going to have to be built. And, we can certainly prevent them from being built on town property, any town location such as Wellington Drive site. We can stop that by just not agreeing to sell them the property or agree to a lease with the property. The issue is that private homeowners, private residential homeowners, they are willing to negotiate with the tower companies, and they're willing to put these towers on their property, such as the one on Croton Falls Road and the one on Dixon Road. They've entered into a contract with the tower company. They've agreed to allow them to construct it there, so they're going through the motions now. The best thing you can do to protect your neighborhood is to make sure that none of your neighbors are going to enter into an agreement and
I got them all here tonight, didn't I?
with Homeland Towers to
Let
put
me
a
share
tower.
a story with you.
As well as landowners who own adjacent land that could be, and that's part of the issue. They don't even need to be a resident. They just need to be a landowner in the neighborhood.
Everyone's gonna get a chance.
you'll-
You're all raising your
We'll
hands.
stay
We're-
here
we're-
all night.
We're
Yeah.
gonna go row by row, and everyone will get a chance to speak. If you wanna
You hear-
move up, you can move up.
You hear what Kenny said about a landowner selling? My daughter bought her dream home on Croton Falls Road. The neighbor I've known personally is one of my best friends for over 40 years. Okay? 1 year after selling her that house, I found out in this building that he's putting up a cell tower. So somebody will sell out their neighbor for $1. That's the sad truth of the matter.
It is, yeah. And
It's true. Well, you have to come up to the mic, sir. Ma'am, are you
Yeah,
finished though? I
Well,
want to allow
I had a
everybody.
whole bunch of things I wanted to
Yeah, go
say,
ahead
but
then.
I'm.
Go right ahead.
I'm-
Go ahead.
Take your time.
Everybody will
I'm
have.
happy to hear what you said tonight, and I really
Oh, I'm
appreciate it.
sorry, can you state your full name?
Yeah, sit down and relax.
My name?
and you can all
Yes,
go.
please.
I'm-
Only
okay.
for the
Eileen
record.
Podlovitz, I live at 105 Wellington Drive. My husband Rich is here in the audience, right here. These are all my neighbors, and we have a really tight-knit community, so you might find it strange that somebody's walking their dog and starts questioning,
Oh,
you know,
no,
the
not
town
at all.
engineer and
I didn't
everything,
think it
but
was strange.
that's
I
what
think-
we do, and then it goes on the hot wire, and we all know about what's going on. So, you know, if you need a bunch of advocates to help you on this cause, we're here. It sounds like you need some partners on this, and
Make sure you give your name to this gentleman right here.
we've already spoken.
Okay.
We know
all right.
each other, but
Okay.
this is what the town of Carmel is about, and I would hate to see, after living here for over 25 years, my town board and, you know, just start to sell out things. So I like where you're coming from with this. I'm so happy to hear it tonight. And let's just keep at it, keep
And let's
fighting the
work
fight.
together
We're with you.
to do what we
Yeah.
can.
And we'll work together. to
I
make sure
appreciate that. That's all I really, we all, I think, wanted here, other than everyone else wants to talk, but
Okay.
we're here.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you
not
so
just
much.
here just for Wellington Drive. We're here for the town of Carmel.
Right.
Yes.
And I
So
think
that-
it's very important we keep the lines of communication open with the citizens as well as with the telecommunication company, because I wouldn't want to have a adversary coming in to build. I'd rather have an ally coming in
Right.
that
It
we can all
always
work
works
with
better.
together.
And, you know, we're all Verizon customers, so, you know, we can, or we're all cell phone customers. We all need the service, I understand that. But, you know, maybe we have a voice in that way too, whatever. I'm sure you guys have, I'm only at this 24 hours, so you have
Good
a
job
lot
in 24
more.
hours.
Thank you.
We've been trying for 7 years to
We've
get
been trying.
turnouts at almost every meeting, and we can't do it.
Good job. Thank you. Okay, I think, ma'am, she was raised, was she first?
My name is Jean Tock, and to echo Eileen, I like what I'm hearing from you, so thank you. But my question is very specific about the two properties on Farview and Wellington. The property description report for the property on Wellington classifies it as number 591, which is playground. The property on Farview is classified number 682, which is recreational facility. What I'd like from you, if you can tell me the difference between these two designations and what type of structure, if any, can be permitted to be built on these properties with designations as playground and recreational.
Greg, you want to take that?
Is that my?
What we learned, and I'm learning fast too, is anything that has to do with recreation is not easy to put a cell tower on. They have to go back to the state. It's a year process, and there has to be some kind of trades or agreements made. But that's the hardest piece of property
Okay.
I've learned there is to put a cell tower on.
What's the difference between playground
That I
and
don't know.
recreational?
That I don't know.
Yeah, in all honesty, I didn't know we made a distinction.
I didn't know there was a distinction.
Okay.
Yeah,
Playground
there-
is a form of
The
recreation.
municipalities' property description reports classify them differently. So I just wondered if you could explain that. And
I would look at them as the same.
of course, this came up with the cell towers, but I'm also interested if anything could be built there, because I understood it to be green space, forever green.
Yeah.
Okay.
But recreation, we did learn, is the harder location to put a cell tower on,
For the telecommunications
for the,
company.
for the tower company.
Okay, thank you.
Gregory Kasimis is my name, 129 Wellington Drive. I have one question. If somebody, a resident, sells their house and they lease it out to a cell tower, how's the town gonna let them construct something? We put a pool in, I gotta come back 4 times here, and it takes me 60 days to get a permit. We need to build a deck, we need to do something, we go for permits. But a cell tower that they can erect 30 feet up in the air, they get the okay? How does that work?
Well, I wish it was 30 feet.
Yeah.
Stay there.
How tall is it gonna be?
I think they
think
plan
that-
anything up to 180 feet.
180 feet, even more.
But that is,
The code is
Our code says 75.
Code says
50.
Okay. So, but how did they get the okay on a residential to put a tower up?
FCC oversees anything and everything we can do to try to stop them.
And they have to go through a planning board process. I believe it was 2 years ago that we did a new cell
You have a
tower.
telecommunications section in your code.
We did a new chapter in the code for it, but they do need to go before the planning board. But if it's the planning board that stalls, they can invoke that FCC 90-day rule. If you don't give me my approval, I start construction, and you can't do anything to stop it. So they do go through a typical planning board approval, typical work with engineer, building department. But if it's at a point where they say, "No, you guys are playing the games," we invoke our 90-day rule, and then the clock ticks.
Yeah, but that is, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, that is correct, except then it's an argument in court, and you could say you're going up against the federal government. But if you make a strong and good and compelling argument that the tower might not be needed because there's an adjacent tower somewhere else, or the height of the tower, like, listen, if you want to build a 100-foot tower, fine, but not a 180-foot tower. The federal judge is going to listen to a strong and good argument. It's not just the 90-day clock starts and they're guaranteed everything that they want. The town, one of the other things that the town should do is we need to have a strong argument on each one if they go and engage the 90-day clock.
And you guys can't legislate any law to end that?
They legislate laws over our laws.
The federal government trumps us.
I will say that this company, and I don't believe any telecommunication would do this, they're not going to overbuild what they need on height because it's cost.
I get it.
And their engineers will do sightline studies to make sure they're going to do the minimum height needed because it mitigates what their cost is. They don't want to put any more money into the project because it's going to hamper what their return on the investment's going to
So
be.
what you're trying to say, if somebody right next door to me just decides he wants to lease out his property, and they accept it, they can go ahead and do it, and we have no say in the matter?
There's still a planning board process, and they're subject to, the planning board is subject to the oversight, for lack of a better word, of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So what the town board did is enacted a telecommunications process for the applicants to come before the planning board to present their application. There is what they call a mock-up and a demonstration of the height and maybe the visual components of the tower once it's going to be there that's required. There's one or two that happened, I think, last month for one particular site, and I think there's one coming in April for another site for private properties that are considering or that they're applying for the construction, approval to construct. They are granted what's known as a shot clock, where the approvals process has got to be completed. And if it's not, they can seek a remedy in federal court to actually construct. With respect to again, we're not in the planning board for those applications, but I do get reports on them, and that applicant has stayed the shot clock while we're trying to agree on the presentation of the mock-up so that the people can see what at least the theoretical visual impact is going to be once the tower is erected.
I have one more question. Timeline, what are they thinking at? Next 3 months, next 2 months, next year? What is this Homeland, have they given any kind of timetable?
They have not.
Nothing at all.
No.
Okay.
But let me just state this, that it's mind-boggling to me, and it's unconscionable that the federal government has allowed these towers to be installed, and that municipalities cannot consider health concerns to the residents when they're before the planning board. So the planning board, even though we know that there are definite health concerns that are associated with these cell towers, the planning board cannot consider that as one of the reasons to deny the application. So what all of you have to do is you all have to contact your federal legislators, Chuck Schumer, Gillibrand, Sean Patrick Maloney. They're on the federal level. If anybody can change the law the way it's currently written, it's them. They have the ability to do that. Why they're allowing it and they're not amending that law or rescinding that law and rewriting it to allow municipalities to consider health concerns is totally disgraceful. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to write to our federal legislators, our federal representatives, and demand that they do. It's good that you came here, and I'm glad you're all here, all right? Because this is what, I would hope that, when you heard something like this, this would be your reaction. But we all have to take from here, a lesson from here, is that until health concerns are allowed to be evaluated and considered from these cell tower applications, that unfortunately, and we all said it, they're coming. They're coming, unless we can deny them based on data that's associated with health concerns.
Planning board looks strictly at the construction of it. If it's 150 feet and it falls, what does it hit? How do you get to it? And that's really it.
I would highly recommend that everybody please take the time to reach out to your representatives and convey to them that you're not happy with this and to urge them to please amend that law to allow municipalities to have greater teeth with these things, with respect to health concerns.
One thing, and Bob, forgive me before you speak,
sir.
but, one avenue, and I hate to do this because it's always pitting neighbor versus neighbor, but if a neighbor is going to sell out another neighbor for a couple $1,000s a month to put up a cell tower, in my view, and I've asked attorneys this, multiple attorneys, if a neighbor of mine wanted to do that with a tower, I'm suing that neighbor for damaging the property value because I have a right to sustain my property value. Unfortunately, we can't get involved in that, but to keep neighborhoods strong, and if you're all together and you're worried about looking to your left and your right and who could it be, or if someone's watching TV, it's a civil matter that you can go and if you're selling this out for $4,000 a month, then I want some of that because you just lowered my value of my house.
And that's after several years. It starts at $1,700.
Yeah, so
They're not getting big money on these things. Everybody thinks they're getting $10,000, $20,000 a month. They start out at $1,700 with the possibility of going up to $5,000 over several years. And that's only if every other
carrier gets on it.
takes,
They're
and with the
usually
way
built out in
technology's
3
changing
years,
now,
with
we could
carriers
be
full
looking
in
at
3 years.
skeletons in 20 years.
So whoever puts it up in 3 years, they're making $60,000 a year on it.
You need to closely pay attention to what's going on in your neighborhood and what potential neighbors may be considering a lease with the Homeland Tower, all right? And then you may want to have a private conversation.
And that's
with them.
not just for here, that's for
That's
the
for every-
audience
it's for
out in
everywhere.
The whole
TV
town.
land, it's the whole town.
Right. I'm only in, because they're here.
No, I'm with you.
But John's right.
I don't want neighbors to start fighting
It's
here.
But I
right.
mean, we gave you an example.
Sorry, Bob.
Here we are trying to, the cell tower came to us and said, well, where else can we put it where we don't upset the neighbors? We tell them, look at all our properties, and what happens? Person puts us on notice to be sued. So obviously, they're more concerned with the cell tower going up than the neighbors. And, the story I already told once, and I'm not gonna say it again.
Bob?
How you doing? My name is Robert Buckley. I received some phone calls from some of you out here. I'm involved with the cell tower going on with Croton Falls Road. I helped them out in Dixon Road. I had a few forms in my house and at the library. I usually come to these meetings with some detailed notes, but I pretty much know most of this off the top of my head, so I'm going to shoot from the hip on this. I was riding by. I said, let me stop by and give a hand to these neighbors over here as far as what I know, because I know exactly what you're going through. So with that, one of my recommendations would be to the supervisor and to all town board members is, on any list that you have of properties that Homeland Towers is requesting from you to potentially put a cell tower on, and maybe it's not a bad thing, because in our hierarchy, in your telecommunication 360, your law, it clearly says where they should go. It might say industrial, it might say commercial, and then it goes down and down, and then town property, and then it has residential very far down the list. One of my recommendations to the town board would be, I would clearly tell Homeland Towers that this is our list, but we're gonna pull these 7, 8, 10, 12 from the list because we will never sell you or lease you these properties because they're dead in the middle of residential communities. So the fact that they went up there and even looked at their community sends a real bad message to the community that there might be a thought of the town leasing it to them. So I would maybe reconsider with Homeland Towers, sit down and say, you know what, we gave you 24, but 11 of them are never gonna happen, so don't waste your time. Then you'll be sending a real strong message that you don't support cell towers in residential communities. By the way, anybody listening, if they want to go on my Facebook page, it's No Cell Towers in Residential Communities in the town of Carmel. I got 4,800 hits the last month, only 132 followers, but everyone's looking at the page, and I'm sure Homeland Towers looks at it, but it's okay. I don't consider Homeland Towers our friend. Some of you said they may be nice. They may be nice. They called me up and spoke to me on the phone for 45 minutes. They were very nice to me. They told me we can lower the tower. We can maybe make it like a tree. You know, we don't really want to put it at 180 feet, but we're asking for 180 feet. So they probably really want 150 or 140. Now, as far as the town code, me and you were right, Mr. Lupinacci. The town code says in a residential community, you can only put a cell tower up 50 feet. But if you want to submit to the planning board for a special permit, you can go 50% of that height and go up to 75 feet. So, John, you're right, it is 75, but it would have to be by special permit. So in reality, they only can go 75 feet in a residential community. They're not asking for 75 feet. They're ignoring our town laws. They have no respect for our town laws. The trees in the neighborhood are approximately 65 to 75, maybe the highest one is 70, 75 feet. Guy told me he's got to have the first antenna 10 feet above the highest tree line. So let's call that 75, that's 85. And then you got to put 4 antennas, add 40 more feet to it, you're up in what, 115, 120. So they have no respect for the town laws. They have no respect for the hierarchy that we have here. As far as the Telecommunication Act of 1996, I think it's a great idea to ask people to go to their state senators and their federal senators and their congresswomen, but this is an issue for us right now. And what's the reality? They'll hear us, but it ain't gonna change in time for us. They're looking to invade our town. They're looking to go anywhere and everywhere in our town. And I agree with everybody on the town board here. They will go to your neighbor, they will ask your neighbor to sell you out, and if your neighbor sells you out, shame on you. Anybody wants to take a ride, take a look at that Facebook page, I put the pictures up. But on Eleanor Drive, fortunately I'm down in the hole, so I don't see it so bad, but some of my really nice, good friend neighbors, they got such beautiful, one guy put a window in, so big and beautiful, you look out, you see nothing but the mountain, you see Danbury Airport, you see the valleys in the morning, you see the sun come up. I got pictures, it's so beautiful. I'm a photographer as a hobby. It's sickening to look out there and think about when I saw that crane that they put up there. And yeah, some of you said they were being good. They weren't being so good. They were fighting to put up the balloon test and the crane test, and they didn't want to follow the town code. The town code said it should be up 2 weeks before the planning board meeting and 2 weeks after. They fought like hell to get what they had to do. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Homeland Towers was being nice. This town board had to push them, the planning board had to push them, and anybody else in the town had to push them. Now the process for us and the process for you would be, just so you know, and I don't believe there'll be a cell tower in your community, I would love to hear and I think you said it, the town board clearly state for the record that in no way and no shape do you support cell towers in any residential communities. And Ken, I know you have made, in a newspaper, you said that for the record, but I think you have to send that message to Homeland Towers when they're looking at properties. Don't even go up Wellington Drive. That's residential, you're wasting your time, because the only way they could get on Wellington Drive is if they go into a lease agreement with this board. And I can't imagine this town board going into a lease agreement to screw the taxpayers of this town and have these people come out. This was done, Eileen, I think did this last night, And imagine if you gave her a week, what this room would look like. So, no, really, I'm serious. This is an incredible show in here. You should pat yourself on the back, because I look at this room, I'm very impressed. This is what the neighborhoods are all about. The other problem is, and this is for everybody out there looking on TV, and it happened to Eileen on the phone. A lady called me from Jersey a couple weeks ago. She asked me what the process is, what I'm going to. She goes, the neighbors right around, they're with me, but people like a quarter mile away, they all want it. So everybody who's not directly impacted, oh, we think we should have more 5G, more cell towers. It's really good to say that until it happens to you and it's in your backyard. Now, you just heard today they're coming to the town. I know through some sources that they're looking to do anywhere from 6 to 9 more cell towers. 6 to 9. It could be in your backyard next. If the town residents don't support, we all know we need cell towers. So I'm not saying we don't need cell towers. Follow the hierarchy. Go on my Facebook page. The town laws are there, and look at what it says. You're supposed to go at the industrial first, commercial, and down the list. What do you call it? Residential is way down the list. Why would they go right to residential? Because it's cheaper. It's about the bottom line. It's about the dollar. So now what do? So they did the crane test. We fought it. We came out. They're moving forward. They got the agreement with Mr. Borelli said, I think his name is Deal up on the hill there, and they got a signed contract with him. We're all going to suffer because of that contract. So now we're at the point where we hired a special attorney who only deals with telecommunications and deals with fighting cell towers. He says he wins 75% of his cases. The shot clock that they're talking about has not been enacted yet for the cell tower on Croton Falls Road. What has to happen is, whether it's am I correct with that?
Right.
Okay, am I correct with that?
Yeah, he's correct.
I double-checked
Yeah.
it, and they said they have not enacted it.
I don't want to speak to it, and I also don't want this board to be speaking about a specific pending application. It's just bad business.
All right, all right, I'll tell you. I was told it wasn't enacted, all right? And you don't speak to it. Okay, thank you. At the end of the day, here's what the attorney who advises on this, he said, listen, the first day the application is accepted, the shot clock is on, and that's where the 90-day shot. And after 90 days, if the planning board does not accept it, then it's accepted by virtue of the 1996 Telecommunication Act. However, the key here is the planning board should not accept the application until they do everything that's requested of them, contingent upon A, B, C, and then the shot clock should start. So until the crane test was done, they should. So there was an issue whether the planning board accepted the application or not. That's why I think the shot clock was not enacted. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of strategic maneuvers that need to go on. It's very, very complicated. And as the supervisor of this board said, if you read the Telecommunication Act of 1996, they got us by the kahunas. And the only way you can fight them is you have to go to the planning board. There's going to be a public hearing now for the one on Eleanor Drive and the one on Dixon Road. When they have that public hearing, people need to come out and talk about the issues that impact them.
Everybody.
Everybody. But here's and Kenny made mention to it. They love when you come out and talk about the radioactive waves and the danger to your kids. You never win on that issue. We all know that we believe it may be an issue. We don't know long-term what it is, but you can't win on it. The federal government doesn't allow you to win on it. What do you win on? You win on a bunch of other issues. The adverse effect to the community, then you got to come up with what your adverse effect is. What's the impact of the sale of your home? Looking out your beautiful window and looking at it. You got to go to the planning board, and you got to make the planning board understand the negative impact it's having on you as a homeowner. And when you do that, you got to give the planning board the ammunition to deny the application properly. So if they decide to go to a federal court and fight against the planning board, they'll have a strong enough case where the federal courts will either stand with the planning board or Homeland Towers walks away and says, we're not going to deal with it. They denied it on a good application or for good reasons. There's a lot more that can be done. We could have more meetings at the library. I didn't come here prepared, this is kind of off the top of my head, but I just wanted to come here to support this group. Somebody has called me, and I just thought it would be fair to come here, and I commend you all for coming out tonight, and thank you for the time.
Thank you for the
Thank you,
info.
Tom. Yeah. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? Come on up at this time. The floor is yours. Okay. Thank you all for attending tonight. I commend you all for being here, for protecting your neighborhood, not only from the adverse effects that it would have visually, but from the health concerns that we all share. So thank you so much for attending. I would encourage you all to attend future meetings when this topic is going to be before the planning board or any other boards.
Any tower.
Any
in the town.
tower application. I would encourage you to be here, all right? And we'll make sure that the room is available and that the door is open and to accommodate everybody, because I'm sure it's going to be a full house. It's going to be packed when this application goes before the planning board for the public hearing portion of it. So pay attention to, you could go on the Town of Carmel website, and all of our meetings are posted on there. The calendar's posted on there of when the meetings are going to occur, what the agendas are, so you'll be able to look at the agenda. And if you see a Homeland Tower application is going to be heard before the planning board, in particular the public hearing night when that occurs, please make an effort to be here to support your neighbors and the community, and they would appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody coming out here tonight.
I actually have one question.
Sure, come on
Go
up. Yep.
So, this is new to me. I live on 98 Wellington, right across from the property.
Put this,
Come a
the
little
people,
closer.
the people can't hear you.
Right
Pull
across
it closer to you a
People
little
on
bit.
TV can't hear you. Thank you.
Great.
And what's your name?
I'm Jordan Gillespie. I live on 98 Wellington. I'm right across from the lot that was looked at. When I got notice of it, I kind of felt a little bit blindsided that I didn't know about it ahead of time, that there was somebody kind of coming out there and looking at it. So I'm a next step person. I'm a little bit of a planner. I just want to know, like, what's the kind of next step here? Like, when would you ever hear back from Homeland, or, like, what are the next steps with Homeland? Like, when would you hear back on any of these properties, and, you know, whether they are residential or non-residential or whatever's put forth? What are the dates?
The engineer from Homeland Towers, his name is Klaus Wimmer. He's the gentleman that was out there with our engineer. Typically, what they do is they'll review the site, the location, and depending on whether or not it would meet their needs or their demands for the area as far as site coverage, they'll look at that entirety, the parcel itself, to see if there's a location in that particular parcel that would be suitable for it. And then they would contact our engineering department, Rich Franzetti, to let them know if they have any further interest in it. They may contact to let us know whether or not, if they say, no, it's not suitable, it's probably not a good location for it, they'll let us know. So they'll probably reach out to us within the next week to 10 days
Okay.
to let us know if that's something that they'd like to continue showing an interest in. But as you heard tonight, because it is a town-owned parcel, and it would require the assent of this board, the approval of this board, to go further with that particular location, I think you heard tonight that we would not agree to either lease that property or sell them the property for a location for a cell tower. So even if they say that we're interested in it, we can let them know at that point that that's not a good location, and we wouldn't support it.
Okay, but they could come back and trump you and say, we really want it, and just
No,
do
they
whatever they
can't.
want, or no?
I don't think they can condemn our property. What
Like,
they would
if
do is they
so-
would go to the landowners around there.
Yeah, they
And
just,
then ask?
they'd work
Okay,
from there and go
but once you
around.
say no, then it's not gonna happen unless, basically they go to some other homeowner, and then us as homeowners would kind of sue them for loss if they went through with that, as you said before.
Or landowner.
Or the
Or
landowner,
landowner,
yeah.
yeah.
Possibly would be our next step. Okay,
So
Because there's a lot of woods back there, right?
yes,
So the problem is,
Yes.
and I have, where I live, I have maybe 10 acres of woods in between our string of residents that are owned by 6 different people. And it's landlocked, so
Okay.
that wouldn't be a good location because it's landlocked.
Right.
But if there's easements for a landowner back there who's got 10 acres, unfortunately, what's to stop that landowner to say, you know what, I could capitalize on my land right now? And that to me is the scarier part. We know that they've already identified the area because their engineers have already said, that's an area we need a tower, somewhere in this vicinity based on elevation, sight lines, communications, dead zones. find us a spot there. Great, this lies here. Even if we say no, they're gonna say, okay, let's go over to the perimeter now. And
Okay.
just gonna, we'll keep you guys informed as we get any information, but we can only stop on our property, and we can, like Bob said, I mean, thank you for the information tonight, because there are things that we could do at least to, maybe before that shot clock starts, we could at least make sure that everything is in line the way that it's supposed to be prior to even giving them the option to invoke that.
And how do I find out the information, like next week or 2 weeks, whenever you hear?
when we
How
hear
would I?
back?
Yeah, when you hear back, how would I find out that
Oh,
information?
I could reach out to Elaine.
That would be perfect.
And then,
I'm quite sure there are
It's
some
easy
people
to
out
get
there
word
that'll
out.
know as soon as we know.
Let's stay on top
and
of it.
Elaine
There
can
might be
disseminate
some
it out.
people out there that'll know before we know.
What is it? Eileen, we do have your phone number, right, Eileen? Okay.
That'd be great. We really appreciate that.
All
Thank
right,
you so
well,
much.
Absolutely, and
You're
I think
welcome.
it's, I think it's good that neighborhoods start to organize like you guys have done so quickly. And I think getting a delegate to act as a liaison is a very good means for making sure that the lines of communication stay open between us and everyone who's in that neighborhood. Having just delegated liaisons make communication so much easier, so that we don't have to worry about redundancies, making sure that people are at least getting the information sent out. So if you guys can kind of get together and informally make, it seems that you guys already have your de facto leader.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that we communicate any word that we do receive in regards to that location that we are property owners of.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, yeah. We really need neighborhood watches now for cell towers. That's what things have become, so be vigilant, watch out,
And
protect the
unfortunately, it's
neighborhood.
nothing to joke about, but I think this is exactly what we need, is we need
Yeah,
communities
you
organizing.
keep an eye. All right, thank you for being here.
Just a
Thank
quick
you.
follow-up. If these parcels on Farview and Wellington are designated recreational, why was the engineer even there in the first place?
That's a good question.
It's a good question.
It's a good,
I
it's a
asked
good
that
question.
same question on why did we give 23 recreational pieces of land if they're all restricted recreational?
Exactly.
We showed them everything, we told them everything we owned,
Right.
because we want to draw them to us before they go to one-year neighbors.
So you showed him properties other than the 23?
No,
No, this is.
Only
it.
the 23
Only the
residential?
Only these 23 properties.
Not residential, they're
Do they have the,
recreation, I think,
water
and
and sewer district also?
But they were
Yeah.
deeded by subdivisions, which subdivisions mean residences.
a lot
So
of it-
they're
a
all
lot of it is
residential
sewer
near
and
residences.
water.
a lot,
They-
yeah, a lot
they
of
did-
it's sewer
They
and
did
water
look at
in
some
regards to-
sewer and water locations also. But these are all residential sites that are in residential developments that are deeded residential. So, but they wanted to see these also.
So they're designated as recreational, all 23?
Yep.
So
They're
none of
all
those will,
deeded- they're
none of those
deeded-
can be built on?
They're all deeded as recreation sites.
No, I don't know if all 23.
I don't know.
Did you just go through?
Yeah, with Jonathan and I just looked through them.
I did not look through them.
How many were there in total?
I did not look through
23.
those to see that they were all
With the sewer and
restricted.
the water and everything.
Oh, I think they looked at another 8 or 10 that
Okay,
were
so
sewer
it was
and
over
water.
40.
There's over 40. These are just the ones that are
Okay.
subdivision locations that were deeded over to the
Okay.
town in
Thank
lieu
you.
of.
We wanted to know where they're looking.
Right.
They're not gonna be
Everybody could
interested in any
understand that.
property where they already have
We
cell
wanted to know
tower
where they're looking
penetration. They just,
before some neighbor is blindsided like my daughter was.
That's
gonna
the
fill
other
it in.
thing, there's antennasearch.com, you can put your address in, which I did last night. There are 7 towers within 3 miles of my home on Cherry Hill.
That's the only other way. Bob left that part out. But to prove, and the comment about they come in disrespecting our laws is absolutely true, because they know they don't have to follow them. That's the sad truth of the matter. But if you can prove that it's not needed there, they have to
Right.
prove that there is no service, I believe, in a certain area, and they have to cover it, and they use the cover under the emergency guise. It has to be covered due to emergency. So if you have poor reception, that's not no reception.
Right.
So most of Carmel, a lot of it has poor reception. But I find I have reception no matter where I drive in this town.
Me too.
So that's what I find a little strange. They have to prove that there are areas that have no reception.
Yeah. There are 2 cell towers, I believe, near Putnam Hospital, and Drewville has no reception.
This is the other
So,
one, Mr.
So
It makes no
It's a
sense.
mountain hilly area. And then, Homeland comes to us and say, well, Carmel is not like any other town. Carmel's in the watershed. It's 97% residential.
Yeah, right here, yeah.
So what we're doing is drawing them to see where are they looking.
okay.
If
So we
anybody-
don't have a group like this every 6 months for the next 3 or 4 years. Let's get it all out now.
But you
Which is
can't-
what I said last time when we had a big group like this.
You can't explain why the engineer was there in the first place at a recreational designated town-owned property?
We just said make a list of all town-owned properties and tell them what we have. The logic, I just said the logic.
The logic is what Mr. Borelli's saying, is to see where they want. As
To see
Jonathan
where they
says,
want.
their engineers said, okay, in order to line up the data to go through the 5G, we need a tower here, in this area, in this area,
Right.
in this area. They're not telling us where the area is. We
Right.
give them a book, that's a telltale sign that you're in the track of the data service that they need. So if it's not this property, it could be one of your neighbors, or it could be the neighborhood next to it.
Right, or on the next hill.
You could almost say it was a fishing expedition to see where
Exactly.
they're looking at it. That's,
I know it was about 5 years ago, the federal government started to say that one of the largest concerns that they had was in regards to emergency responsiveness through telecommunications. And then we had our federal representatives come through and specifically state the Hudson Valley and Taconic and this region have some of the largest dead zones. So they specifically were targeting trying to penetrate as much. So even though you do have 7 cell towers around, you emphasize the point of, you have 2 at the hospital and half of Drewville doesn't get service.
Right.
Because of the geography that we live in, unfortunately, the way that the technology works right now, they're gonna find out ways to make sure that they get their telecommunications where they need to. But again, knowing and working with the company, they wouldn't put something there if they didn't know that they could utilize it, that they needed it to fill a void, and that they would get their carriers. They're not just gonna put up towers to put up towers, because they wanna make sure that they're gonna have their carriers. Their engineers are very astute at what the technology is and what the science is behind it, and they're pinpointing locations, and I'm sure that they say, we're only able to go out X amount of meters from here before we'll lose whatever it may be that they're looking for. So I think, like Councilman Borelli said, at least we're able to gather information on neighborhoods and areas of our town that they are gonna concentrate on. Ideally, we'd love to be able to put it in an area that has nobody living around it, that has absolutely nothing. I don't know if anybody remembers 3 years ago, the county was gonna put a cell tower right at Airport Field. And we had a long discussion about that, and things have not come back since then. But we definitely know, unfortunately, as technology stands today, it's coming.
Yes.
So we do have to work together, and again, keep these lines of communication open, and make sure that we're constructive about what we're discussing, and tonight is a perfect example of it. There's no hostility, it's all open discussion, it's all information. Bob, again, I can't thank you enough, coming out and giving the information that you
Gene,
gave.
before you
It's
said-
good, it's very good stuff.
A gentleman asked why we gave them all the properties. So you know that they're looking in your area, okay?
They're looking specifically at my
If-
property because it's the highest elevation.
I know, I know. So if they're looking in that area, then you have to look at everything around that area, because these people are not gonna give up until they get a tower in that area.
Well, my neighbors can rest easy that I'm not selling out.
Okay, good.
Good, thank you. Yes, sir.
How you doing, Rich Luce? Just a quick question. Is the town's position on Wellington similar to the position on Farview? Are you going to have to take the same position with the one on Farview as
Yes,
well?
yes.
Where because it's Park and Recreation, you wouldn't lease that to the Homeland
Correct,
Company?
correct. I wouldn't be in favor of any of the properties that are in this book. I would never agree to allow them to put a
The
tower.
whole board, you can speak for all of us.
Okay, the entire board, I just looked through these, every single one of them is in a residential neighborhood. Doesn't belong there.
And they can't force your hand
No, they
as
cannot
far as
force.
town
our-
property
no,
goes.
No, they cannot force
They
our
can't
hand.
force our hands to sell.
But our neighbors, of course.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
No, I
the
got you.
neighbors, they could.
So this is to kind of trigger where they're interested.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, so obviously, if they visited Wellington and they visited Farview, they're interested.
that's what I'm saying
That
by a
area.
fishing
Right,
expedition.
that's-
We have an understanding of that area, yes. Now, and please don't misinterpret what I'm about to say. But if they want this area and they go to one of your neighbors, so now the question is, Do they go to a neighbor, or do they go to a town property where the town can get the money, or say, you have to go far back, as opposed to someone's backyard? But if you look at one of these pieces of property, okay, you're gonna go as far back into the woods as possible to mitigate how close they get to the neighborhood. I'm not saying I like it, I hate them in residential areas, quite honestly. But now you have a balance act, that if one of your neighbors is gonna say, yep, put it in my backyard. Or you could say, okay, wait, go 2 lots down that town owns, so the town gets the revenue, and you push it all the way back, because now we tell them you're gonna push it all the way back there. That's a balance act. If they're gonna, as everyone's saying, they're gonna come. So, you know, there's, I'm not gonna repeat it.
You know what I'm worried about? As someone being in the real estate my whole life, I'm wondering when they're just gonna start buying houses.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's only a matter of time, right?
Buy the
Because,
house and then
Buy the
sell
house.
it.
you know, they're gonna start coming and seeing groups like this, and they're gonna say, we'll buy it under a shell corporation, and say we own it already. And I'm wondering if they even own houses out there now. That's what I've been thinking about for a long time.
So, just out of curiosity, if you were to go toward Putnam Hospital, there's a lot of empty land there that it really isn't next to residential. There isn't anything that's owned by the town in that area?
NYC,
I'm sorry.
New York City.
City, the DEP, the New York City DEP owns a lot of that land.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's surrounding
Because it's
the
on the
hospital.
watershed.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
watershed.
Most of the land you see that looks beautiful in this town is owned by the city.
And they don't, and why can't they go after that?
Correct.
Yes.
I'm wondering how they're gonna cross the
You mean
stream.
Wetlands. Wetlands?
Wetlands,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, wetlands, yeah. It is wet, I know.
So state,
That's the planning board, and that's why you have to go to the planning
Yes,
board.
yes, good point.
I'm sorry.
Anybody wants to ask, come right up, please.
so these state properties are off limits to them? They're just
The
coming after
city,
the
the
town?
city properties?
The city properties, yes, they're off limits to them?
They're
They're
off
just coming
limits
after?
to them. You won't see one on city property.
They know
I
it's,
doubt it.
the easiest one is a homeowner.
But the federal laws don't apply to the city, they only apply to municipalities? These federal laws you
Oh,
talked
no,
about,
they
that,
apply,
no,
they
they apply to
apply to
everybody.
everybody.
So-
They apply to the city also.
so they just don't want to pay the prices to the city for the property, is that
The
it?
cities don't want structures on their property. They don't want,
I don't think the city even talks to them.
yeah,
I think the easiest person they go to is a homeowner quietly, and that's why we want to know where they want to be.
No, I understand your point, but doesn't the federal government still have the same impact? Whether it's a city property or a local municipality, don't they have the
Absolutely.
same legislative power that
Yeah,
they have
but-
over you
but-
guys?
but-
So
but-
why
but-
wouldn't they go after the city properties?
Only if they don't lie in an area that their engineers have pinpointed. But I think it,
But you have an agreement between two parties. The tower and a party, be it the town, be it a resident, or be it DEP. If the town says, we don't want you to come on our property, federal law doesn't dictate anything. You can't force us, you can't eminent domain our property. If it's the resident who says, yes, we want it, then you go through the planning site, planning board application and the zoning, and that's where the federal government comes in and says, put it there. The DEP could be the same as the town. Thank you, but no thank you. You're not coming on our property. So the federal government doesn't ever, the laws never come into play. It's when a party engages with them and says, yes, you could put this tower on my piece of property, and then you start the planning board process.
Okay, so they're seeking the path of least resistance,
Yes.
essentially.
yes.
Absolutely.
All right,
Correct.
thank you for your time.
That's what they do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just one quick follow-up, if you don't mind. Just one quick follow-up. So I was just talking to Eileen, I guess maybe to save Eileen all the trouble of having everybody mail emails and stuff tomorrow and follow up, it's just the town board here saying you would not allow a cell tower up on Wellington, in that area up
That's
there.
correct.
That's
That's
100%?
correct.
On
Is
any-
everybody?
On any residential.
But I want
residential
to, just for this area, I just want, so.
100%.
So you guys are good. I just want to make sure we
100%.
got the word from the board there, because they can't do it unless this board votes for it. And the other thing the gentleman said back there, the cell tower company doesn't have eminent domain where they come in and take anything.
can't.
So at the bottom line, they can't take it from the DEP, they can't take it from the town. That's why, like Mr. Borelli and the rest of the board said, they go to the homeowners who are willing to sell us all out. I think that's the bottom line.
So, but
Thank-
what we're telling you this evening is, they're looking at that area.
Okay, thank you very much, board.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Anyone else, or Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Oh, the meeting, no, well, we're not, all right, we'll give it a couple minutes.
You want to see if there's any further comment, or we can?
Yeah.
I'll make
All
a
right,
motion
all
to
right.
close the work session.
Is there any?
Mike, do you
all right,
second the
yeah,
motion to
please.
close the
Yeah.
work session?
Can somebody make a motion to close the work session? You second it? You second it?
Kenny?
Yep. You second it?
What?
Do you second the motion to
You
close the work
second?
Yes, I have to
session?
go to a wake.
Okay.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I thought I would.
Good night.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone. Be well. We'll see you next week.